since America with Eden Cornell. Yeah.
And good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Thursday. It is December the 8th. What a beautiful day in the United States of America. We are free. And thanks to all of those who do serve, our active duty, our military families, and our veterans who have served. We are so grateful for each and every one of you. And I wanted to share with you today, we have some very special guests, new guests to Common Sense America. And I'm so thankful, first and foremost, to Kirsten Fedewa. She is a very dear friend of mine, a former Hill colleague on Capitol Hill, and she has introduced Common Sense America to a group, Special Operations Association of America. And we are going to be bringing over this morning their founder, Daniel Elkins. He is a Green Beret, and I'm so honored and thankful for his service and what he is doing with Kirsten Fedewa and her 6th annual holiday event, a holiday tribute to veterans, which will be taking place next Wednesday, December the 14th. I'm so grateful and thankful. And then the second half of today's show, we'll be bringing over young voices who you guys all are very familiar with. We're going to be talking about Elon Musk and Twitter. So all things on the table for that. And then also I wanted to just send out a message to you guys. Save the date for tomorrow. We are bringing another new feature to our Veteran Friday special, and that is the Mozart Group. They are on the ground working on the Ukrainian humanitarian effort, thanks to our dear friends and family here in Eastern North Carolina. For all of those who are tuning in here at Common Sense America, I want to first thank our veterans, our military community here in Eastern North Carolina. We have Camp Lejeune, we have Cherry Point, we have New River Air Station, and 2 hours away, we have Fort Bragg. So to each and every one of you, thank you. Also to the Coast Guard who are serving here, and also to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. We have such a jam-packed show today. I don't want to waste too much more time in my opening segment, but I just want to make sure you guys got up this morning, you got to listen to the show, and we are talking about our veterans. We're talking about women's health. We are talking about what is ahead in the new Congress. We are talking about what we can do in the season of giving back here at Common Sense America. So I am thankful to each and every one of you for tuning in this morning. We have a jam-packed show. So I'm going to bring over to the show, and also, as you were watching this segment, make sure you go to the link below. It is the event on December 14th, a holiday tribute to our veterans that will feature and talk about Daniel Elkins, who is currently serving as a Green Beret and the founder of the Special Operations Association of America, serving as a voice for all members of the Special Operations community. Good morning, Daniel. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Common Sense America. It's great to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I've been looking at your website and just studying up on who you are and wanting to, this show is very much focused on military. It's very much focused on our veteran community. And it also has a huge contingency of women who support this show. So your audience is very in tune to what is happening in and around our world. And we talk about here kitchen table topics and discussions and how it's affecting our family and how it's affecting our nation's backyard. So I really would love to, if you could educate the audience on what Special Operations Association of America does. And from there, I'd love to talk about the collaboration point with Kirsten Fedewa. And then we can also, I want to hit some of the women's topics of what you do on the Hill, and we can talk some legislation as well. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks again for having me on the show and for that gracious introduction.
Sure.
The Special Operations Association of America is the only nonprofit in the United States that solely advocates for the men and women of the Special Operations community. And we are a voice for that community at large, for those that are currently serving and those that have left service after many years of faithful service to this country. And we really have four programs or pillars of things that we do. The first one is advocacy. So we advocate for better equipment, better training, better care and transition, things like TBI, spinal cord injuries, suicide. This community is one that has a suicide rate that's 30% higher than the rest of the military. And a lot of people don't know that. When you consider the small force, we account for roughly 6% of the standing military. Yet over the last 10 years, we've accounted for nearly 60% of all combat deaths and roughly 80% of all combat missions worldwide.
Okay.
So it's a highly mobile and force
Yes.
that's deployed often. So we want to advocate for these groups of people. We also do security advisement. So we believe that it's important to get operators with dirt under their fingernails that have the ground truth and elevate their voices to the highest levels of government to help people make their decisions that ultimately protects our country. The third leg of the table, if you will, the third program we have is, closing the military-civilian divide through storytelling. The work that the men and women of this community do in and out of uniform and on and off the battlefield is amazing work. And we want to elevate that narrative and continue to grow the trust that the American people have placed in the service that we do overseas. And last but not least is our allies program. We fundamentally believe in America first, but not America only, because we know that more of our community would be buried in Arlington National Cemetery today if it wasn't for our allies overseas that serve shoulder to shoulder with us in combat, like combat interpreters in Afghanistan. Which is why last year during the evacuation efforts, we were one of 3 nonprofits in the world that put a team on the ground. We helped evacuate 500 American blue passport holders, thousands of Afghans. We chartered several aircraft last year, had a network of safe houses. And then when Ukraine started, we were asked by the Ukrainian government to come over and help. And I've spent probably out of the last 9 months, at least 4 or 5 months in Ukraine.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you did hear my intro. We will be having the Mozart group come on tomorrow to talk about their efforts. Have you guys worked with them?
We have, been in the same community. They were very involved in the Afghan evacuation.
Yes.
I know them well, and the work that they're doing on the ground is great work.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate you explaining the 4 pillars. So you are the founder of Special Operations Association of America. When did you begin this work? And I want to break it down to, for those in leadership and those who are watching this show, a lot of the people that I've had on the show, we all worked on the Hill together. So for many, many years, I served on both House and Senate, and then also served in the Trump administration. And a lot of the focuses I did zero in on was our veterans and our military. So talk to me about some of the things that you are specifically currently working on. And Katie had sent over some talking points. And one thing that really triggered what I wanted to speak with you about was our veteran healthcare. I am a veteran spouse, and I ran for elected office earlier this year. And a lot of the things that I saw in the great state of North Carolina was severely lacking with our veteran health care. So talk to me a little bit about what your advocacy is to the Hill for veteran health care.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of to answer the first part of your question of, when did this get started and why? So, as I've been in the National Guard as a member of the Special Operations community, I've also worked, a civilian job and career. And that started 15 years ago when I started at the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, as one of their legislative associates, advocating on behalf of veterans. And as my civilian career progressed, so did my military career. And I noticed a significant shift. And really, the shift occurred around 2014, where the majority of combat operations started to be conducted by the special operations community away from conventional force. And, as I surveyed the advocacy work going on in DC for, some of these well-known organizations like Wounded Warrior Project, the FW, American Legion, so on, I noticed that there was no advocacy for the special operations community. It was kind of a community that was not really being addressed. So I saw this huge need, and we went through a process where we met with quite a few people, including, some of the CEOs of some of the groups that I just mentioned, and they all said the same thing. We've tried to do this, but it would need to be started by people from the community to be authentic, and that's what we did. And we raised our first dollar in August of 2021, and it's been off to the races ever since. And to answer the second part of your question, when it comes to advocacy, we've been prioritizing three things. So, wounds of the mind as well as wounds of the body, and then no particular order of priority. Also, equal benefits for the men and women in the SOF community. And I'll kind of lead off with that.
Sure.
Many people, and including probably a lot of your listeners, didn't know or don't know that women have been in combat roles for quite some time, well before Congress passed the provision that allowed women to enter into combat arms. So the special operations community has been using women operators, since the existence of the special operations community. But unfortunately, there were some bureaucratic related issues.
Sure.
How these women who volunteered, were coded, if you will, to give them a designator that when anyone looked at it, they would know that they had most likely been in combat. And unfortunately, what we've seen is with this group called the CST community, the cultural support teams that embedded with Navy SEALs, with Green Berets, with Rangers, and increased combat effectiveness by 60% in some cases. They are being denied care at the VA and denied benefits at the VA simply because their DD-214 still reads that they were a cyber technician or a supply person. And, when they say I was in, 27 combat missions and deployed next to a Green Beret team, and that's why I have a TBI, unfortunately, that's often not believed by the physicians that are attending to them. And we're very, very proud to be, at the goal line of changing that with some evolution of legislation. So that's the issue in a nutshell.
Talk to me about some of the legislation. Who is advocating for you in both House and Senate? I know we have a lot of combat veteran members of Congress and senators. So are they running alongside of you to support you in these efforts first? And then what are some of the more specific legislations you can talk to women in their health? I have, like I said, we live in a very much a veteran community, a retiree community, Marine, Army, Navy. And some of the stories I've heard from our younger veterans, specifically female veterans, they are being denied care. And that is of huge concern to me, from not just the male versus female, but the fact that why do we even have to even go down that path? And what are some of those ways that we can open up the floodgates? Because we could say to them, call your member of Congress, go to your local official. But is that really going to work? Is that really going to be the advocate? It's going to go through a lot of bureaucracy and a lot more headache. And these people could be, dealing with a certain health issue that's terminal. That's my bigger concern. And, I talked about this on the campaign trail when I was running. My husband, who his DD-214s are legit, everything was lining up. He was sick, and the VA here in the local area denied him care. They said, go to an urgent care. And I said to the nurse, what are you here for then? What are you here for? What is your purpose? Because you're not doing anything to help him. And you know what, COVID or not COVID, he didn't have COVID, but COVID or not, you're supposed to see these people. And so that really raised an awareness to me of what is actually really happening. And I'm not here to bash the VA with you this morning. I'm just here to raise awareness on what we actually can do through, is it legislation, through the advocacy, through the women, and also with the women's health?
Yeah, and those are some complex questions that we as an organization are in the trenches and dealing with every day.
Yeah,
We are lucky to have extreme bipartisan support on
great.
Capitol Hill. And Congressman Hudson is one of our strongest
Yes,
supporters,
that's Richard
as
Hudson. Yes.
as well as Senator Tillis. And we also have former members from the Special Operations community that are currently serving in Congress. And recently elected members of
Yes.
Congress. So Morgan Luttrell
Yes.
is on my board, and he is a huge advocate. Congressman Waltz from Florida,
Yes.
serving Green Beret as well. A
Yes.
huge advocate. Congressman Green, is a huge advocate, a former 160th pilot. Senator or Congressman Crow from Colorado. He is a huge advocate, and the list just kind of goes on and on. But yeah, we have received a unique opening because I believe that members of Congress and their staff, when they hear that Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Rangers are going to be coming in to talk about the ground truth, they know what that means, and they welcome that feedback.
No, that's really good to hear. So, talk to me. I want to talk a little bit about Kirsten Fidowa's event, and I'm going to be putting this up on the screen. Holiday cocktails of this and songs of the season with tenor Anthony Kearns. It's going to be Wednesday, December the 14th, and it's featuring guests like you, members of Congress, and beautiful service dogs from the American Humane Society. Talk to me about some of the stories that you're going to be sharing with the attendees. I have been a participant over the years and a supporter and a donor. And so what will you be sharing with the attendees in this holiday service to tribute to our veterans?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be some great discussion and conversation about Ukraine. I spent all of October there, and when that particular trip, I was primarily auditing the accountability process of military hardware. And there's a lot of disinformation about corruption within Ukraine, and we evaluated it and took a very, very detailed approach because we really wanted to be able to present that process, whether it was good or not, to members of Congress and people in the administration, as well as people in DoD. And what we found, it was a bifurcated, I would say, set of accountability, in Ukraine. So unfortunately, people who are donating money for humanitarian aid,
Sure.
I would still assess that there's significant issues of corruption, and a lot of that money, or the aid that gets purchased with that money, may not be going to the people who it's intended for. However, what we found was an elaborate, complex accountability system for all military equipment and hardware that was almost so robust that it slowed down accountability, or it slowed down combat operations. And and asking why, people in the Ukrainian government understand that if they lose accountability of these things, and God forbid it gets sold on the black market, and it gets acquired by terrorists, the international community may completely stop supporting the war effort. And this war effort is really an effort against democracy and tyranny. And firmly stand with our Ukrainian allies, and believe we should continue to support the effort that's going on there.
Are there I'll give you this example and tell me how much you can. My husband said to me, he's like, if we weren't married, I would be going over right now to do what I can. And, I'm sure there's a lot of stories like that. My neighbor is one as well. He was in the 82nd. He was an officer in the 82nd, and he went over for the past couple of months. Are you seeing a lot of that from those who are retired and saying, you know what, I'm going to go. I'm going to go volunteer my time. Is that what you guys are also doing since you've been over there?
Yeah, I do see a fair number of former military that wants to get involved and wants to aid. As an organization, we don't advocate for that. I would say you've served your country enough.
Yeah.
You don't need do that. We're going in more of a capacity that is adjudicated and coordinated with DoD and with the
Okay.
State Department.
Okay.
It's just not on our own.
Right.
We understand that there's a lot of legal parameters
Yes.
that go on with working in that country. So, we have host nation agreements. We have coordination and approval from, the powers that be, and that's why we are able to continue to move and have access and placement in Ukraine.
No, I appreciate what you were doing and your active work on the ground over there. I wanted to ask you something else from the veteran standpoint, as there is such a gap when the time has come to move on to the next season of life. And I see a gap for our veterans and the transition piece. Do you also play a role in that with your advocacy and your policy to kind of fill in that gap? You said in 2014 you saw some things just weren't all there. And so now currently is that something else that you are doing for your community that is then helping the men and the women who served to kind of get into that transition? Because I've heard so many stories of those who are transitioning out of the service. It's like, okay, what do we do now? And that is, and we talked, and the mental health piece is huge. The mental health piece is huge. And you even said yourself, the suicide rate's higher. So is that something else you are facilitating and filling in that gap in that transition piece to kind of prevent that from happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So the military's transition program, the Transition Assistance Program, or TAPS, has gone through many iterative, renditions on Capitol Hill, and I've been blessed with the ability to help write and advise some of that legislation, and that's meant across the board. But as far as the government program is concerned, I think it merits continued oversight and modification. Conversely, with the special operations community, that transition program is just not an ideal fit.
Right.
We're talking about, service members who have significant levels of experience, are capable, often have led, interagency teams, been entrusted with millions of dollars, sometimes cash. Have handled classified documents and strategic assets overseas. So when they transition, they often have a more significant road ahead of them to translate that into, work outside of the military. So we are huge advocates and partners with the Honor Foundation, as well as the Soft Transition Foundation. They have excellent programs, and we're currently working on Capitol Hill to take their programs to become programs of record for transitioning members of the special operations community. And you mentioned the suicide and PTSD. So one of the interesting things right now in the medical community, in the literature, is the introduction of a condition called operator syndrome. And I'm not sure if you've heard of it or not, or familiar. Yeah, well, let me give you kind of a broad strokes overview. And I think that this may apply to many of your listeners or their spouses. So this research started in the NFL when the NFL was researching concussive events, or acute trauma to the head, versus subconcussive events, like just, the normal tackling of players. And what they found was that even without acute concussive events like a TBI or a blast, there was significant impact to the brain over time. And as they continued to research this topic, they realized that what was happening was a dysregulation of the endocrine system and hormones.
Okay.
So conversely, members of the military, and specifically those in the special operations community, have a high rate of subconcussive events from all the rounds that we shoot on the range, mortar pits, interior breach charges, jumping in and out of helicopters. We tend to get our brains rattled at a higher rate, even if it's not an actual concussive event. And what the research has shown is that your average member of the special operations community around 35 will have the testosterone level of someone in their late 80s. They may have their estrogen level of someone who is, 6 months pregnant, and their cortisol level will be that of a NASCAR driver, or a motorcycle racer. I always say, if I started injecting anyone with massive amounts of hormones like estrogen, they may start to have some complex feelings or emotions and have difficulty coping. And I think it's important for us to realize that, all members of the military go through a medical exam to get in, but they don't go through a mental health assessment. Everyone in the special operations community gets selected based on their resilience and their ability to be mentally tough. Yet we see higher rates of suicide in this community. And what we're finding is we can treat PTSD in trauma, whether it's moral trauma or whether it's physical trauma, by getting the hormonal system back into normal regulation. And when that's done in conjunction with therapy, we see 84% of the people we've treated, their PTSD symptoms go away.
So what are ways that we can point veterans in that direction to have? Is that through the VA? Is it through private doctors? What is the process for that?
Yeah, so if this sounds like it may be something, your listeners are struggling with, disrupted sleep, lower libido, just they feel off, they feel more aggressive or maybe more emotional or more sad, or they're struggling with PTSD, I highly suggest reaching out. Our organization is focused on the special operations community, but we have partners that focus on the broader conventional force. And we have a patented blood panel that we subsidize, which measures some unique hormones that you typically wouldn't measure in a male or a female. And them on a neuroinflammation or anti-inflammation protocol to bring the inflammation in the body down and bring the body back into a state of homeostasis. And we subsidize that as well. And we have seen amazing results.
Well, talk to me about ways of giving back, first and foremost. Our whole "'Tis the Season" veteran tribute, giving back, season of giving. What are ways that we, the audience, can help Special Operations Association of America get involved? I do have the website at the bottom on the lower ticker, as well as the December 14th event. But what are ways that we can get involved? Is it donating? Is it volunteering our time? Is it rallying and going with you guys to Capitol Hill? Is it advocating? What are ways that we can get involved to serve?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I'll highlight 3. So if you go to the URL, www.soaa.org, there's a donate button on that website, and you can give. And right now we have 2 particular programs that we're trying to raise money for. We are hoping to raise around $100,000 by the end of this year. And right now, I think we're right at $93,000. So we're trying to close that gap so we can continue to treat people through our neuroinflammation protocol. We can pay for the labs, pay for the supplements, pay for the doctor consultation. So that's one project. Additionally, we're very active in Ukraine. We are conducting medical training. We're doing mining, and we're providing high-level feedback to those in Ukraine. And we're hoping to raise $20,000 to do that, to close out the year, as well as be able to provide teams on the ground in January and February. So if you're inclined to give, and I ask you to unashamedly, those are 2 different programs you can give to, or you can give just generally. The second way people can get involved is, following our social media. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. And if you see a compelling article come out, not only smashing that like button, but also, reposting with a comment, and it draws more people into the site, and it elevates the voice that we have. And then the way is actually volunteering time. So whether that be maybe you have administrative gifts, maybe you have social media gifts. Maybe you are comfortable, talking in front of other people and have a compelling story. We'd love to amplify that. The more voices that are all speaking the same message and going in the same direction, the more powerful we are. So those are 3 ways people can get involved.
And those powerful stories you will be sharing at the holiday cocktails and songs of the season with Kirsten Fedewa. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is. And, I would direct in the show notes, or even in the comments to the show notes, 2 or 3 particular videos that we've done. We actually have done a powerful story on the CST issue, and that's very compelling. We have a video of multiple members of Congress explaining why this organization is really important. And we also have a video on operator syndrome. So we know that there's power in storytelling, and we aim to keep.
Yes. Well, I will be very much sure to share as I am uploading all of this on all the social sites today and on for all of the followers. I will include some of those links, and Katie did a great job with some of the also the additional pieces that she provided for the show today. So I will be sharing all of that. But Daniel Elkins, I am so grateful for your service, and thank you for what you're doing for Special Operations Association of America. Thank you for just telling the stories and supporting our veteran community, our women veteran community. It's just been an honor to have you. And for all of those who are in the Washington, D.C. area, go to the holiday cocktails and songs of the season and get to meet the Special Operations Association of America, meet some of your members of Congress, and hear beautiful Christmas music from tenor Anthony Kearns, but also just be able to sit down and really just meet with our veteran community and say thank you. I know that's so small, and I've had many veterans say we don't necessarily want to hear that, but at the end of the day, from a veteran spouse to the military community and the veteran community, you guys are very much loved and admired. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me today.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And I will look forward to seeing you soon. Many blessings to you, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. For all of those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill, and it's such an honor to have such powerful voices for our veterans in this day and time. As we are headed into the holiday season, I want to remind you, go to December 14th. Down below on the lower ticker is the website to sign up to go hear the Special Operations Association of America, their compelling stories that they'll be sharing at the Tribute for Our Veterans on December the 14th in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol Hill Club. You don't want to miss it. Even if you don't get to sign up and you decide, hey, you know what, I'm on the Hill, I want to go over, or I'm in the Virginia area, or I'm driving through the Beltway, and you know what, I just want to go hear some holiday music, but also honor our veterans. This is the place to be. Kirsten Fedewa, I am grateful for what you do every year to raise awareness for our active duty and our military community, our veterans. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for always putting on such stunning and beautiful events. I'm so thankful for you and your friendship. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be bringing over to the show our Young Voices contributor. And also we are talking about Elon Musk, Twitter, and what's ahead for social media and those in the conservative voices. So we will be right back. And for all of those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill. It is 9:36 a.m. Eastern Time, and it is Thursday, December the 8th. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe how close it is to Christmas. Have you guys sent out your Christmas cards yet? I'm going to be honest with you. I have not. I haven't even started them. And I was kind of wondering if you, the audience, can share with me some of your ideas. If you, in fact, send Christmas cards anymore, are Christmas cards a lost art? Do we no longer send Christmas cards? Is it all social media? Is it sending a text? What do you guys do? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, the holiday season, the Christmas season is a part of the very fabric of us, and coming together as community and doing holiday parties and celebrating and singing Christmas carols and watching movies and decorating. But, I really have not had time to do Christmas cards this year. And I thought, well, maybe a picture and a text. What do you guys want to hear? What do you guys want to get? So just let me know. And I'll let you know, I've only gotten a couple Christmas cards. So I wonder if it is something that's no longer happening anymore. I'd love your thoughts on that. I know it's just a question I've been wondering, and I'm asking you, my audience, to all of those who are tuning in, I'd love your thoughts. Feel free and text me or message me. I also am sharing with you a message from Kirsten Fidowa. She said, thank you, Eden and Daniel, for highlighting these critical issues for the special operations community, which in the end affect us all. You are so right, Kirsten. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you so much for introducing Common Sense America to the special operations community. Powerful community. I am grateful for their service and what they do. So we are just awaiting our Young Voices contributor. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about James. You will recognize him. He has been here before, and we are going to be talking about, yes, Elon Musk, yes, Twitter, yes, Hunter Biden laptop, yes, the left and social media, the right and social media. That's what we're going to be talking about here this morning at Common Sense America. He'll be joining us in just about 2 minutes. A little bit about James. He is a senior policy analyst at Americans for Prosperity, a national think tank in Washington, D.C., with 35 state chapters around the country. He writes about Section 230, antitrust, consumer, data privacy, cybersecurity, technology, and innovation issues. He earned his master's degree in economics from George Mason University, and he is a graduate from the State University of New York. So we look forward to having him come over. He is published in Real Clear Future, the National Interest, Salt Lake Tribune, the Washington Examiner, and many more. So I am so glad to bring over to the show James Chernowski. And let me just brag. Oh, here he is. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I'm doing great.
Merry Christmas. So glad to have you back to Common Sense America.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. And happy holidays to you as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, all things politics here on the table. I'm looking at the USA Today article. We got Elon Musk, we got Twitter, we got Hunter Biden laptops, we got the left, we got the right. Give us your analysis on Twitter, and what are we going to do with all of this as the American people? Talk to the moms here, talk to women in leadership here, talk to the kitchen table. What do we do with this?
Yeah, I just think that it's really a good time to just let everything simmer and process. I think a lot of the things that came out in the Twitter files were things that were already known, but not necessarily like conveyed to the public in the past in like a more meaningful way. This had been figured out through like FEC investigations and through Senate testimony from then CEO Jack Dorsey. But basically, during the 2020 election, as it's well known, Twitter and Facebook notably took different types of action to restrict the ability to share the New York Post story covering the contents of the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, at the time, part of the issue is that when that story was being pitched around to other outlets, they weren't necessarily comfortable with taking it on. There was questions about the provenance and the legitimacy of the actual information that was on this laptop. It was getting shared around in the form of like JPEGs and screen grabs. So that creates like a little bit of uncertainty. So the New York Post ultimately is fine with running it. But it creates a problem on Twitter because they don't realize, they don't know what exactly to do with this. They know that there's something that's out there. And in light of everything in the 2016 election, when you certainly did have Russian operations going on trying to influence some aspects of our elections, and that's something that did happen to a degree. And then in 2017, they had hacked materials get released during the French election season. They were under an immense amount of pressure to try to figure out what to do at that time. And I think what the Twitter files show best is that this was a company that, even when it made the decision it made, as the events continued to unfold, there was not any uniformity within the company itself in terms of this decision. You saw employees questioning the policy decision that was made, whether or not they could actually stand behind that truthfully. And even to a point where you had a sitting member of Congress, to his credit, Representative Rokana, reaching out. Not that he's any Republican by any stretch of the definition, but he was worried about the First Amendment principles that were, being raised as a result of Twitter restricting access to this type of content. I think that it was a very flawed policy that Twitter had in terms of doing the hacked materials policy and restricting sharing of the link itself. And we, even within direct messages, usually that's something that's reserved for preventing the spread of child pornography materials. So it's definitely something that's very odd. It's very rare. And then it's just another one of those situations where while it was dubbed misinformation by certain people at that time, as you get further removed from that nexus of the origin, you start realizing that, even mainstream media outlets like the New York Times and CNN, I believe, and some others were acknowledging the fact that it seems like there's actually some legitimacy to the contents that were on that laptop. And that goes and just raises a whole bunch of other questions in terms of, how it was handled ultimately. And I think that the company acknowledges that it made the wrong mistake at the time, but they're in an impossible place. No matter what decision they would have made at that time, they would have had everybody angry no matter what.
Well, talk to me about big tech across the board and the censorship aspect, because that really, every day I come to my audience every day and I hope, and I say a little prayer before I even go on, and it is in reality, am I going to get bumped off of YouTube? Am I going to get bumped off of Facebook because I say one word versus another? And yesterday I had a guest who tends to come on every once in a while, but every time they do, and the conversation is phenomenal, I get community strikes against me. So my question to you is, with your background in this, what is good for us, the American people, to say, you know what, I don't really care about Twitter. I don't even use it. Or what do I say to my parents' generation who wants to use Facebook? That's the only way they really communicate with their friends. And what do I say to my generation who watches YouTube versus watching TV and cable? So, breaking that down for my audience in the kitchen table discussion, what is a best source, if you will, especially with conservatives being still censored in all of these platforms?
Yeah, and I think that it's really a give and take ultimately when you're looking at the decisions that these platforms are making, broadly speaking. On Facebook, despite everything that they're doing, some of the most engaged pages are conservatives, whether that's the Dan Bongino show or Ben Shapiro. All those pages tend to do very well on Facebook, and conservatives have certainly boomed even on YouTube. Again, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, a lot of those guys do very well by that respect. So I think that if censorship is the objective, then in some pretty serious ways they're failing at that when it comes to critical voices in that space. That's one side of the equation. The other is that I think that if you're a conservative, what you want to do is you want to go and put your message on as many different mediums as humanly possible. So notoriously, in light of all the actions that YouTube was taking, you saw the rise of Rumble. And Rumble's done actually pretty solid in terms of getting itself, up and off the ground, getting a decent number of daily active users and monthly active users, getting good engagement, including even having a current sitting senator and Rand Paul going and putting some of his stuff on that platform as well. So I think it's more about identifying, where are there opportunities for you to more directly connect with your audiences. And basically, moving there. And just also recognizing what these platforms are in terms of, sometimes how things play out. Like, I know there's a great story from one of my friends where they were working at the company at the time, and they had a list of like words that they didn't want to have included on like whatever, or you would see action taken on it. And one of the words was dick, but then there's a book by, a famous author, Moby Dick. And the algorithm accidentally struck down the whole thing. So sometimes I think what doesn't get realized is that, it's an imperfect process with imperfect people that are trying to make a lot of decisions after the fact. And that certainly is hard. If you do have those kinds of problems, it's important to go and flag things, report them to the company. Engage in the appeals process that like Facebook does have, and Twitter does have an appeals process too. You just go and leverage all the tools that those companies have at your disposal so that you can go and get content back up if you think it was wrongly taken down.
But do you think big tech has too much say in our freedom of speech? Do you think that they are just too involved, whereas even the government is too involved? It's almost like they're working hand in hand together.
Yeah, I think that, they certainly have a large degree of power in terms of what they want to provide as permissible conversations on their platforms, and that's understandable. It's their private property. They are not the government. They are not constrained by the First Amendment like the government would be. I don't necessarily buy into the argument that they're the digital town square, because if we applied that logic to Facebook, it doesn't really translate out well, because to the point that you were outlining, it changes where the conversation's happening, generationally speaking, right?
Yes.
If my grandparents are on Facebook at a plurality and watching cable news, but you're watching YouTube and I'm watching Instagram Reels and TikTok, your town square is a little murky at best, right? So I think that you need to have a little bit of nuance and understanding that. I think that what you want to encourage the platforms to do, and you're starting to see this a little bit, is trying to localize more of these decisions, whether that's by doing things like Birdwatch at Twitter, where the community is providing context to the tweets that are being put out there. So infamously, that happened for the White House when they put out a Social Security tweet where they were saying that under Joe Biden's leadership, President Biden's leadership, that seniors were getting the highest bump in Social Security in years, when in actuality, the community put the context there being that, hey, he actually didn't do anything for this. This is just based off of the rate of inflation. And ultimately, the White House had to go and delete that tweet, right? So it's actually a good check on the powers that may be on some of these platforms, or the government that wants to try to control a narrative. So I think trying to find opportunities where the community can be more engaged is certainly one way of going about it. And again, rather than having a more globalized conversation, trying to bring it internal and have it within communities, more broadly speaking, I think is pretty important. I want to go and chat with people across the aisle, but I do think that it's not helpful if I don't necessarily know you. If everybody's just strangers on the internet in many ways, it means that it's a less costly thing for me to be combative with you, for me to be incendiary, inflammatory, any of that kind of stuff, because I don't know you. The chances of me seeing you in real life is pretty slim to none. And that's something that I think has to get baked into the equation. So I think if we can, try to return back to us engaging in our communities, both on a state and local level, in terms of that kind of a conversation, and fostering and joining groups that promote things that are focusing on your community, I think that can go a long way towards actually having a better semblance of speech being balanced, and also I think a little bit more tailored and great in terms of fostering good community and good conversation.
Because my next question for you was this, is the new Congress, and you think with lame duck is lame duck, but new Congress, 118th Congress, I wonder how involved they will be with big tech, with the new Republicans, and state. What would that look like? But you almost answered my question before I even asked it, because you said it really needs to come back to local community conversations versus the government having yet a hand in our pockets when it comes to this conversation, especially as big tech is intermingled there. I just, I see sitting here in North Carolina, I'm a Northern girl in a Southern world. I worked in DC for 20 years. Some people see me as now in the Southern space. Oh, she's just in North Carolina. Not much happens there. But in actuality, a lot of things happen here. And you look in the nation's backyard, you see kids suffering from teen suicide. You see mental health issues. And a lot of the conversations that I end up having end up going back to this smartphone, which I plainly say is flat out stupid because they're so involved in TikTok and all of those other things. But I digress. That's where my mentality is, because I think about next generation. I think about the communication. And I want to bring it back to your point, which I agree with you. We need to be coming back to a local community to conversation, because that is very important to the very fabric of our beings.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that when you're looking at, the congressional level of what's going to be considered in 2023, I think that there's a pretty big caveat there in terms of, what does our economic outlook look like? Yeah. If we're in a recession, even if you do want to take action against some of the tech companies, I think that it makes it more difficult to prioritize that if people are hurting right now because of a recession.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing, some early signs of pain coming. Just in the tech industry alone, there have been over 140,000 jobs collectively eliminated just from the tech sector alone. And, you're talking about Twitter with Elon buying it. That was a pretty big force reduction. Facebook eliminated over 10,000 jobs. Amazon eliminated over 10,000 jobs.
Yeah.
And now just recently, I know PepsiCo, which is not in the tech sector, but you're seeing it kind of spread to other aspects of the economy. They're laying off people. So I think that if there's an economic, hardship that's being seen in the first quarter of 2023, I think that's the priority more so than some of these tech issues. But given the majorities in Congress, it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic works out, because now we know we're going to have a 51-49 Senate, and we'll have a 6-seat majority, I believe, in the House. So we have to see how all that shakes out in terms of where the priorities ultimately land. But I'm sure you'll still see some of these same questions come up on either side, where in the Senate, I might expect to see more antitrust stuff. On the House side, I might expect to see more Section 230 oriented conversations. So I think that there's a lot that can be had in terms of what's going to happen there. But I think that it's best to wait and see and see what our economic outlook looks like in Q1, just because I think it's going to be very difficult, to go and focus on some of this if we have a looming recession.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Final word from you. What do you think Elon Musk's next move is going to be? Can you predict? What do you think he'll do next?
Yeah, I can't possibly predict what that man's going to do. He's his own separate lightning rod when it comes to Twitter and what he's done with the company so far. He's going to continue to try to work on Twitter Blue and figure out how he wants to implement that to democratize the blue check, if you will.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes, and hopefully he can make the company profitable. We've seen already the return of some advertisers who had done boycotts, and Apple and Amazon is resuming advertising, and CNN, it wasn't CNN, I think it was like MSNBC. They took a pause or whatever for a weekend, and they came back. So it's just stuff to monitor. I think that it's just about him trying to figure out how to make Twitter his vision and to execute on that, and then appointing a CEO to go and carry it out moving forward.
Right. Well, James Ternowski, Young Voices contributor, Senior Tech Innovation Policy Analyst at American for Prosperity. Thanks for always coming over, and I love the conversation. It is so fabulous. Thank you for talking kitchen table topics for my audience. I'm so grateful for you. I hope you have a fabulous holiday season. I look forward to seeing you back here soon.
Thanks for having me, and happy holidays to you and your viewers as well.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For all those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill, and it's been a fun day, a fun morning already, and I'm just so grateful for each and every one of you who have tuned in this morning to hear our commentary on Twitter, Elon Musk, Hunter Biden. More on that, FYI. And then also, if you haven't had a chance and you're watching here on Facebook, hop over to my YouTube channel, Common Sense America with Eden Hill. I have a lot of different segments from all of the shows I've been doing since September, you guys, since September. And I clipped them down so you don't have to watch the in-between segments. I've edited them so you can see some of the shorter versions of some very powerful interviews of giving back this season, of politics, of candidates, of what is to come for 2023, of your budget, all the kitchen table topics that are affecting our families, affecting our nation's backyard are right there for you on that YouTube channel. And also, I wanted just to give you a heads up for Monday. I know Monday's right around the corner. We'll enjoy our long weekend together. But Monday, December the 12th, American Humane, the service dogs, we're going to have them top of the hour. I'm so excited. Also, thanks to Kirsten Fedewa. American Humane is going to be one of the key sponsors for their Veteran Tribute event on December 14th at Capitol Hill. And we're going to be talking about service dogs. And then second half, Futures in Education. Do you recognize the organization name? Remember how we had the Emmaus Center and their Christmas concert, which will be December 13th? They will be here on the second half of the show on December 12th, 9:30. Futures in Education, Catholic school education, a faith-based education for Brooklyn and Queens students. So they will be joining us on Monday. It's going to be a jam-packed Monday. You guys do not want to miss this episode. And then, you know how I was talking about Meg's woe is me and the spare? Well, we have a treat for you next week. Yeah, we'll be talking a little pop culture, not necessarily politics, but pop culture. I thought it'd be fun to chat up the newly Netflix series that just dropped today. And so Tuesday, December the 13th, from the UK, a Young Voices contributor who was here during the Queen's funeral, Portia Kilby, will be joining us. And we will be talking pop culture, all things The Spare, and all things Meg's woe is me. That's what I call her now. And going into next week, like I said, all new faces, all new features. So I'm excited to have you guys right back here. For all of those who are tuning in this morning, thank you for your support to our veteran community. Thank you for your support to our nation. Thank you for your support to Common Sense America. It's been an honor to be here with you this morning. And, you know, as we are in the season of Advent, the season of his second coming, the season of Christmas, and the celebration of Christ's birth, I would love to send you over to a blog that I read every morning. It's on my Instagram page at Eden Gordon Media. I put in my stories daily. Susie Larson, she's an author, and she's a faith-based author, and her devotions, she does a morning devotion and an evening blessing devotion. You don't want to miss. They are simple 3 to 5 minute read, scripture, and highlighting the Advent season. And as we are headed into the third week of Advent, it is joy, and joy for all people, not happiness, but joy. So as we end today's show, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. It's a great Bible verse. He is with you. Go make today's journey powerful. Go impact the life of somebody you've never touched. Go smile. Go buy gas for somebody. Go buy a cup of coffee for somebody in the line at Dunkin' Donuts. Wherever you are, be strong, be courageous, and do not be afraid. God is with you. Have a great day. We will see you guys tomorrow.